Hey, Foilers. Ben and I need your help as we continue to work to grow it for God and increase the amount of listeners to the podcast. Here's what you can do to help. Head on over to our website, thetfhc.com, and be sure to sign up for the email newsletter. Doing so will make sure you get content as soon as it's available. Also, join us over at the Tinfoil Hat Club podcast page on Facebook, and be sure to follow, like, subscribe, and most importantly, share with everyone you think would enjoy the show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks for being fantastic and for all the love and support. Now, back to the show. Welcome to the Tinfoil Hat Club. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Ben.
And we are joined today by our first ever guests to the show.
Yes, we are.
And the most special guest to the show that we're ever going to have.
That's right.
No offense to anyone who comes on ever after you two, but we got to put you in your proper place as far as our most special guest.
That's right.
Get our brownie points in. And if any of you out there are listening, based on that intro and based on the fact that I just said brownie points, they are, in fact, our wives, Adrienne and Maria. So
yes.
Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
So they are going to join us today for an interesting discussion. So the way we left off last episode is we kind of started to get into, and we've talked about it before, a little bit of the Sheol thing. And we'll probably cover that in another episode. But what we're going to do first, kind of the next two episodes, we're going to talk about Sheol, where you go when you die. But we're also going to talk about, in this particular episode, where do you go when you sleep?
Yes.
Because I think we would all agree, no matter what your background is, no matter what your faith is, I think we would all agree that we've probably had experiences that are strange, either after we've fallen asleep or in that state between falling asleep and awake. I think that's pretty, I think we've all probably had something like that, right?
Yes.
And you two specifically have had things that you've talked about where, you know, I know you both, this gets into a lot of different stuff, right? A lot of different avenues. So, and there's really kind of two avenues even within this, because there's the dream state, which, you know, we see a lot of stories, tons of stories in the Bible about prophetic things being given in dreams and dreams being shared. And so we know that God communicates to us through that state. But I also think that there's a lot of things that are clearly happening in that state before you go to sleep, right? That weird phase that I talked about between awake and asleep. So we're probably going to cover both of those topics today and both of that ground today. But I know one of the things that you ladies have both had in common before is something that is referred to as sleep paralysis. Now, Maria, how many times have you had that happen to you?
I've had it happen 3 times.
Okay. And A, I know you said you've only had it happen just the one time. Just the one time. Now, I know, and again, I don't want to, I know more of your story than I do Maria's, obviously, but I know, A, you told me when you had it happen to you, you were fully awake. Is that correct?
After a while, yes.
Okay, so when it started, you weren't necessarily awake.
No, I woke up. I say woke up, but it was, my eyes were closed and I couldn't seem to get them open. You know how you struggle to open your eyes a little bit?
Yeah.
So I remember trying to open my eyes. I felt scared right away and I opened my eyes and all I could do was stare at the ceiling. And it felt like there was something sitting on my chest. I feel like I could feel legs, like a cat kind of perched on your chest. And it's just you can't seem to control your breathing. You're scared, and all I could do was just stare at the ceiling. And my first instinct was just start to pray. So I just started to pray, and the minute I said Jesus, I think I fell right back to sleep, and that was it.
Do you remember the nature of the dream?
No, there was no dream.
You don't remember any dream associated with it?
No.
Do you feel like you woke up in a panic and that's what the thing on your chest was, or do you feel like it was more something more to it than that?
I just remember being asleep. It was obviously my eyes were closed, so it was dark. And I just felt scared. It wasn't a terror. It wasn't a bad dream. I just instinctively knew that I was scared.
Now, Ben, you've said you've never, we talked yesterday a little bit, you've never had this happen.
No.
But now, Maria, obviously, you've said you've had this happen 3 different occasions, right?
Yeah.
So what were kind of some of your experiences in there?
The first time that I had it happen, I had gotten up really early that morning to take my mom to procedure, and we got home and I was just exhausted. So I went in to nap on the bed, and I didn't shut the bedroom door or anything. And I remember that I fell asleep. The next thing I know, I heard the door slam shut, which woke me up. But I couldn't move my body. It was like I was pinned to the bed. So I could only open my eyes and look over, and I could see that the door was closed. And then the next thing I know, it felt like all of the wind was being sucked from within my body. It felt like somebody had a vacuum that was pulling the air out of me, and I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything.
Wow.
I couldn't see anything in the room that wasn't supposed to be there. But it literally felt like something was pulling all the wind out of me.
Was it dark, like in the room?
It was not.
No. So this was kind of during the day?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, wow. You said you'd taken a nap.
Yeah, it was probably early afternoon. We probably got home early afternoon, and I was just really tired. I went in to lay down, and I could see my room daylight as it was. The door shut, even though I had went in there and left it closed. After this was over, then I was still so tired. I just fell back to sleep. And then the next thing I knew, Ben was coming in the bedroom, and he had come home from work, and he came in and he sat down on the bed, and I asked him if the door was shut because I remembered what had happened earlier. And he said, yeah, it was shut. And so I told him that I had left it open, but what had happened.
Yeah.
So.
And you don't think it was like a draft or anything in the house? Something
No,
weird
the windows were closed. We talked about that too.
Yeah.
The windows were all closed. It was in an apartment, so it's not like there was a lot of, other windows or anything. So,
yeah. So that was the first time.
Yeah. That
Okay.
was the first
And
time.
how old were you at this particular point?
I was probably about 23, 24.
Okay. A, how old were you when it happened to you?
I was in high school.
So you were young, even younger
I
than
was
that.
younger. I was probably 16 to 18.
Okay. And you obviously haven't had it happen since.
Nope.
But it was at your parents' house. Did you move? How long were you there from the time that happened until the time that you moved? How long were you there?
We were in that house probably only 3 years. My mom had a few things happen in that house, so it was a good house, but there were already some things that were going on there that were not necessarily bad, just a little strange.
Strange. Like what kind of things?
There was one night I remember startling awake thinking I saw something standing in the corner of my room, like late at night, and I just chalked it up to maybe the moon was going through my window and it just made a strange figure. But the same night, my mom had said she saw light walking down the hallway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Maria, your story, did anything similar to that? Like weird things happened in the house or anything like precursor indicators?
When we lived in that apartment, I don't really recall other things ever happening. Do you, Ben?
No.
Yeah, so you guys were together at this point, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had a preschooler. So, and I just, right now, sitting here, I can't recall other things happening there, really.
Really? So your other 2 incidents happened elsewhere.
They did. They both happened in the house that we currently live in.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how long ago were those 2 incidents?
The most recent one, I'd say, was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I will say that the 3 times that I had it, it was terrifying. But after the 3rd time, I have actually made it a habit to kind of pray before I go to sleep that things like that won't happen again.
Yeah.
3rd one was probably, I can't decide, either the 1st or the 3rd was the most terrifying. First time I had no idea what had happened. Still, I didn't think it could possibly be a dream. But after the next 2, I knew for sure it was not. And so after the 3rd time, I was frightened enough of it ever happening again.
You've been diligent enough to keep prayerful before bedtime.
Yeah.
Well, there's one way to get prayerful before bedtime.
Yeah.
It's like if someone ever looked at me and said, hey, homie, if you consume one more Dorito in your lifetime, your heart's going to instantly explode. I probably would stay away from Doritos. Lord, don't tip me there.
Yeah.
just declare it. I do like me some Doritos. So, and anything in the current house that you guys would say strange or anything like that that would kind of go tie into this at all?
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
I'm going to guess that's a yes. Where do you start? Okay, this is going to be good. Okay, who wants to start?
You can go.
I don't even know where to start.
Did you start noticing it right? Well, first of all, when did you move into the house?
We moved into the house in 2003.
Okay, so you guys have been there for 20 years now.
Yeah.
So that's a
Almost
long time
exactly
to,
20.
experience some stuffs. So, okay, so you move in and then kind of go from there.
I don't even remember what the first things we noticed were, other than maybe hearing what sounded like somebody on the stairs, that kind of thing.
Like a creaking? Are your stairs wood, I take it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then the kids, I recall them sometimes saying that they would see people come down the stairs if they were sleeping on the couch, because it's kind of an open stairway there that runs along the wall to the living room. And the kids would say that they saw somebody on the stairway the night before. And our bedroom is down on the ground floor on the other side of that wall. So, sometimes in our bed we would hear things on the stairs, wouldn't know if it was the kids, and then, but if they were sleeping in the living room, sometimes they would say that they would see somebody walk down.
Okay. I assume this has continued to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even still, what's the most recent thing you've got that's happened?
Well, I know that our daughter recently has heard some things happening. Just heard noise of things moving, and one of our sons not too long ago heard me calling for him when I wasn't home.
Oh, wow.
could hear my
Was
voice.
for sure it was you?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of an interesting thing. What do you guys chalk that up to? It goes a little bit beyond ghosty stuff. That's kind of like almost, dare I say, time?
One of our oldest
I don't know.
son
I'm just throwing it out
suggested
there.
that. I know. Our oldest son suggested that. He talked about that kind of thing. I kind of think of familiar spirits.
That's what I was going
take
with.
Can take on some of the traits of people and mimic them, as kind of what I think of. But our oldest son did talk about that possibility of time and all that, which I thought was interesting. I had never thought about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just throw in, I don't know. I haven't read anything. That's just me. The first thing that popped in my head. I just say that because I think when we're talking about, clearly in these particular instances, I think we're clearly talking about a spiritual realm, right, that exists. And I think inside of that spiritual realm, I do not think time operates the same way it operates for us in the physical realm.
Yeah.
And I think we see some indications of that in the Bible. And I don't want to make it about creation, but clearly one of the things that I pick out and that I see in creation is a acceleration of time. And I know this gets controversial. I'm good at that. I know this gets controversial from a biblical perspective, but clearly, without a doubt, nobody can really argue that there is clear manipulation of time and acceleration of time in the story of creation in Genesis, right? While these things might have happened in one day, we clearly see an accelerated timeline during that day. Right?
Yeah.
We can see full, plants and things coming about and animals and so on. So it's just kind of an interesting thing that just popped in my head. I don't know if I'm on anything there or I'm just off in left field, which is probably more than likely the case. Now, what about you, Ben? What are some things you have experienced here? Is it more one of you than the other, or just kind of everybody?
Everybody's had their own little thing.
Yeah.
I remember I was home by myself, and it's like in the living room, and I just started hearing the cabinet door slam. And I was just like, what's going on?
I came over. I was looking for Doritos.
Not that.
No, I didn't. I'm just kidding.
It was like fast. It was like, bah, 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 bah.
And probably spread out enough where one person ain't going to be able to do it.
Yeah. And then I heard like a bunch of stuff in the basement. I was like, huh. So my first thought is I went and got my gun.
Your spiritual realm gun.
Yeah. No, my 45.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm like
Yeah,
walking around and go down in the bed. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
right.
So I was just like, huh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Now, did you have anything happen weird in that house that you remember? Like, I think you kind of said something maybe a minute ago that you did, right?
In that house, no. In the house that we grew up with, my mom had a few things happen. We had a super creepy basement, as most basements kind of are.
Yeah, I had one of those.
It was kind of a dare each other to turn out the lights and run down there. And the back room was a laundry room with a pull cord light. And if you could run back there and turn it on, then, obviously you're the bravest of most. Nobody did it. It was super scary, super creepy.
You started off with 7 siblings, and now you're only down to 3, just to let you... No, I'm kidding. Kidding again.
Little Timmy had to go.
Yeah. Little Timmy didn't survive the light bulb game.
Survived the basement.
This house is not clean.
It really was not. My mom had, lights go out on her and just black shapes appear and just dread in that house, which I'm glad we left. But in the house in Brownsburg that I had, there was a chunk of time for probably a couple months where I would always see something out of the corner of my eye. And I would always think that it was just mascara. So I'd pluck at my eyes and think, it's just nothing. But you just get a feeling on the back of your neck that you know that something is there. So, you go to look, it's not there. It happened for quite a while. And I just, after one incident, I'm up by myself at night watching TV and it's just there. And I just was like, I'm done. So I didn't know what to do about this. I went and got some olive oil out of the kitchen, poured it into the lid, said a prayer over it, and just went over all of my doors and snuck into my kids' room and did their foreheads, praying the whole time. And it left. I told it couldn't stay anymore, and it left. And then I told this to Jesse, and he was...
Oh, yeah. This literally just, by the way, just happened.
Just
like
told him.
The retelling. The other day.
And Jesse was like, wait. When was this? You mean like when I was alive? Like this was me? I was in the house? Yes, you were in the house.
We should have monkeyed with him and said that we did it the other night.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. So it wasn't mascara, but it was mascary.
It was mascara.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm getting paid by the joke today. So nothing ever. I know you and I have talked about this particular incident before, obviously, because I've been in this house, and I never experienced anything strange there, anything that I would be concerned with. But this was obviously when the kids were much younger, before I came along. So,
Right.
Yeah. So that was it. How long did that go on for?
I don't know, a couple months. I want to say maybe 3. And now, of course, I'm super paranoid. Anytime I see something out of the corner of my eye, I want to go and try to figure it out. But
Yeah.
this house feels safe. So
Yeah, I haven't experienced anything in this house. I don't think an entity would feel very welcome here.
no.
It's a pretty strong house of the Lord. So that's what you like to say anyway. But then again, you guys are a pretty strong house of the Lord too, and you got critters roaming around or stuff roaming around. But do you feel like it's a nefarious thing?
Well, I was going to say, usually, well, not to bring a damper on what you just said,
No.
but usually it seems like when we talk about stuff, that's when it occurs. So you're kind of like inviting it in a little bit.
Even when you talk outside the house?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because it's like, we're like, okay, we're talking about this stuff. We better pray before we go home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's make sure we do that before you go home. Well, thanks for talking to us today. We didn't know. Like every time we talk about fire, the house catches on fire. Like, oh, yeah, I didn't know we were doing that. So, yeah. So now, again, do you feel like the entity, because clearly in your story, Adrian, you felt like that was a very negative entity.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
I always knew it was standing there and it wasn't good. It
And-
was always black.
And from what you can tell, singular,
Yes.
probably
Just
one thing.
Yes.
Now, in your guys' case, Marie and Ben, do you feel like it's more than one thing or just one thing?
I honestly don't know. I would say probably maybe the same thing.
Yeah, just repeating over and over. Now, do you get the sense that it is more of an evil spirit, or just a spirit kind of more benign?
I've never got like I'm scared, but
It's still freaky.
I was scared, if that makes sense. I mean, I was,
because of the experience.
yes, and I think the kids the same. I mean, we have what they blame is we have a very old picture of one of Maria's great uncles, like great uncles, that was hand drawn.
Okay.
And every time we move that, something happens, and they say it's haunted, jokingly.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm not sure they're joking. I think some of them really think that's what it is.
It's kind of one of those tongue-in-cheek jokes, 80% joking, or 20% joking, 80% not joking.
yes,
Our oldest has been afraid. I don't want to say afraid of that picture, but had some feeling that this was connected to him since we got it when he was very young. I came about this picture from another family member when he was really young, and he has always said that there's something about that picture.
Thou shalt not tempt thy great uncle, kind of a thing.
don't move him.
Don't move him. Well, but that kind of makes sense too. I mean, it could be a thing, right? I mean, like, we don't know, because there's so much we don't know. We probably never will until we pass on and we obviously transition over to that spiritual world. But I think there's plenty of stories out there of, it seems like, entities getting focused on possessional things, a house, an item, even a person, maybe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could very well be, right?
Yeah, could be.
So now, this has been going on since pretty much almost day one from when you guys moved in the house?
Shortly after, yeah.
Wow. Have you ever done anything like where you've gone and prayed over anything, or like, anointed stuff or any of that? No, just kind of.
No.
We've not done any anointing. I pray regularly that that the Holy Spirit would dwell in our home, cleanse it and remove anything that's not of Him, whether we have inadvertently brought it in through, whether watching, or sometimes I feel like even watching certain kind of, if we watch movies about hauntings or shows about like paranormal things, it seems like sometimes things will happen, or the kids will have strange experiences after we watch them. I feel like in some ways we invite things like that in.
Yeah.
And, or like Ben said, even through conversations, we've had friends that are ghost hunters and into paranormal things. We'll spend time with them and hearing their stories. And I feel like inevitably something will happen. And so I frequently pray for our home to be cleansed, and the Lord to only allow things of Him inside. And so we do that, but we've never done any anointings.
Yeah, I think it seems to be too. All the direction in the Bible is, don't play with it.
Yeah,
and I think the reason for that is because we're just not. We're babies when it comes to understanding.
Yeah,
and I don't think we're meant to understand. Maybe, I don't know.
I will say the weirdest thing that has ever happened to me. I mean, I tell people this. Some believe, some don't. We inherited her grandfather's van. So I get it home, and
Is this the Benito van?
This is the Benito van. And so I'm changing the spark plugs. I'm changing the rotor cap. I'm doing a complete,
Yeah.
Whatever, making sure it's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
Tune up,
yes. So I'm rather, not to brag, but I'm pretty good at working on the internal combustion engine.
Cool. How are you with wires? Go ahead. Never mind. We won't go there.
And so I'm like, oh, I need to go in and have some lunch. I just took the cover off out of the van and set it, took the air cleaner cover off. I go in and have lunch. I come back out, and all of the wires and all of the spark plugs are out. Completely out. The cap and everything is off.
Wow.
And I did not do that.
Have you had any more instances where you think maybe Grandpa's been? Do you think it's him?
Oh, yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
without a doubt.
You think it's just him monkeying with you?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, that's the way he was.
Yeah, I kind of. We had the reason I said Benito, and I knew it was the van because we met up for an event last night and we talked. So I kind of know some story there, but we won't get into it. It doesn't make any difference. But
Yeah, that van, we call it the Yellow Submarine, and my grandparents would drive the whole family around in it. We'd go up to Chicago
That's awesome.
and all around Illinois. And my cousin actually, he had an EMF reader, and he was going around their property with it, and it kept like going up whenever he was around that van. And they had the van for a little bit of time before.
is that electromagnetic frequency?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And there was the battery, everything was disconnected. It was completely dead.
So our first thought was, well, yeah, it's got the battery and everything. And his dad, my uncle, said no, that was completely disconnected. There was no power to it at all.
Yeah. Why do you think we try to explain stuff away? This is a complete side question.
We don't want to believe.
You think so?
Yeah.
Is it because it's scary?
I
Or
think
is it because we know that we shouldn't be monkeying with stuff?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe.
It's open forum question
I think
to
there's
everybody.
a little bit of a stigma in thinking that it's anything else.
Yeah,
I think
I
there
agree.
are some people that always want to explain it away and think.
Yeah, you get to two extremes, right? Because what happens is you void rational thought. Like okay, like I try to be really rational about stuff and think, okay, well, let's apply common sense here. What could it be? And then it should be like anything else. If you're 95% sure it's X, you're probably right. Yeah, can you make sure and do some things out of due diligence to make sure it's not that and other things? Maybe it's other things, but at some point you kind of void rationality on the one extreme and say, nope, can't be that, not possible, where we can clearly see the scripture I always come back to for this kind of stuff is, what did they think Christ was when he was walking on the water on the way out to the boat? They thought he was a ghost, right?
Yeah.
So it's clearly there. There's been so many people that have had experiences. Every single person at this table has had some kind of experience in some form or fashion. And I guarantee you that probably plays a very high percentage across the population. But then on the other hand, you get the people that want to have it so bad that they abandon reason on that side too.
Yeah.
And they make everything some kind of evil spirit or ghost or something. Or we seance with things, and you shouldn't be monkeying with stuff. Now, where do we think was Grandpa Christian?
I don't know. I never really discussed spiritual matters with him, so I don't know what his relationship was.
Now, is that the only time you think the Yellow Submarine has been monkeyed with? Out of funsies?
Yeah. Well, it's setting right now, so yeah.
He can't do much.
Yeah, he can't do much.
He'd get it running again.
Yeah,
It's running.
Oh, it's running. It's
It's
just
just-
not used very often.
Yeah.
Yeah. But nothing else that comes to mind?
No.
No.
That's the weird thing, And going back to when something happens, I try to I do look at it logically.
Yeah.
And I try, figure out, okay, this, no, this, no, this. You go through the 5 questions.
Yeah.
Okay, then it must be this, and that's what we do. We discuss things. Well, what about that? We try to limit everything until it's like it has to be this, rather than wanting it to be this. Oh, then it must. Okay, then it has to be something spiritual.
Yeah. And I know it seems like maybe we've drifted away from the dream track a little bit, which we tend to do on this show. But we don't really drift too much because it winds up being tied together. Because, clearly in these instances, it seems like there were other things that were attached to that, right? Other strange things. Now, Maria, for you, do you remember any experiences, kind of, whether it would be from a ghost supernatural perspective or a sleep or dream perspective from when you were a little girl? Like, has that kind of been something that has been sporadic throughout your life, or has that kind of been consistent, or what would you say there?
Well,
Welcome to the couch.
Yeah, I can only think of one other instance that I haven't told anybody about since I was very young.
Okay.
When I was in grade school, 5th, 6th grade, I believe 6th grade.
Ben, are you aware of this story?
I don't know if
I
he
don't know.
is. I don't know. This one, I'd really rather not be talking about it.
You
You
don't,
cast,
and
so
you
I'll
don't
be
have
honest.
if you don't want to, we don't have to.
Well,
You started.
yeah, I started and
It's okay. I'll mark it right now. 30 minutes and 20 seconds is where I can go edit this out. Now, I'll warn you, I've said that term several times and it's never happened. But if you tell me you want to, I will.
Yeah.
No, go
it's
ahead.
okay.
You share if you
People think
feel
I'm nuts. I'm getting better about that. It's
I don't think
fine.
anybody. I don't listen. Everybody that does this show, which is normally Ben and I, we have covered aliens, Bigfoot, Sheol, books of the Bible that people don't like. I'm sorry, extra biblical text. I need to be careful and watch my wording. So extra biblical text. So nobody's going to think you're crazy. I don't think.
So,
Because I guarantee people are going to listen to this that have had similar experiences. I guarantee you.
Okay, well, we'll try it.
Yeah.
But I was in grade school and I was sleeping on the couch, not in my bed that night for some reason. I don't remember why. And I usually was only allowed to sleep on the couch if I was sick. That was like a hard rule. Otherwise, I had to be in bed. That night, I wasn't sick because I went to school the next day, but I was sleeping on the couch. I woke up and I insist to this day I was levitating.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I could feel when my parents' alarm went off in their bedroom, which was right off the living room, and I could feel myself when I came down. And it was like as soon as the alarm went off, I kind of woke up and I realized I was like coming down as if I had been levitating.
Hey, have you ever had an experience like that?
No, I can't say that I've levitated. No.
You lift me off the ground all the time. No, my goodness. It's getting deep in here. So the only thing that I think I can I had I don't want to say similar. That's not right at all. But the only thing that I've had even remotely in the vicinity of that was not like your experience. It was, I think mine is much more explainable than that. Because you're dealing with a situation where that's defying gravity, which would be something else is going on, right? In my situation, I had a time when I fell out of bed and I dreamed, I was dreaming that I was falling off a cliff.
I had that.
And I woke up, no kidding, I woke up midway, halfway to the floor, and then bang.
Yikes.
Yeah, kind of freaky. But what that does is it really highlights how your brain, that time distortion
Yeah.
thing that we kind of talked about. I think we all agree that there's a really weird time distortion thing that happens when you go to sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of freaky when you really think about it, right? You close your eyes and you might stir a little bit. If you get older, you stir a little bit more because you got to pee and your back hurts and you got to roll over and you got to do all these things like a bad dog. But, you pretty much go to bed and you close your eyes and then you wake up and it's the morning. It's kind of a really, when you think about it, it's a very strange, abnormal reality of time. But you were shaking your head when I was sharing the falling out of bed story, eh? So go ahead.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And I didn't remember until you said. I had a futon, same house as the weird figure in the corner of my room. I was having a dream, same thing, jumping off a cliff or something. And I caught myself mid-fall. But I had a queen-size futon, so it was only not even 12 inches off the floor.
You were low.
So how I managed to go from the middle of the bed to falling off the edge of a futon that was pushed up kind of against a wall made absolutely no sense to me, and I woke up utterly baffled as to how I got there.
Yeah, that's kind of weird too. What do you chalk the levitating thing to? You have any idea? Any theories?
I don't. I will say that.
How far are we talking, by the way, I guess, before we...
Probably not more than a foot. I don't know, but I'm not sure. I just know that when the alarm went off and I woke up, I just knew I could feel that I was going down, and then I made contact with the couch, so I know that I had to have been off the couch.
And you were laying flat.
Yes, on my back.
Wow.
I will admit that I was into, I had tarot cards. I would read tarot cards. I used a Ouija board.
Ben dropped the dime on you last week.
Yeah.
I didn't drop it on the show.
Oh. I mean,
Kyle did.
let's see. 34 and 50 seconds. Kyle screwed up, edit out.
And I also even had a crystal ball that,
Oh, wow.
was bought.
I was going to bring this up anyway, but okay.
Yeah, so I was dabbling in those kind of
Yeah.
things. I was very interested in witchcraft, things
Yeah.
like that. So, and when I had friends over and we were playing with the Ouija board and something levitated in my bedroom. So it wasn't even this, that was
Oh,
after
wow.
me on the couch. So, that was a few years after me on the couch, but when the thing on the couch happened, the only one I told was the very next day. I told my best friend at recess.
Yeah.
I was telling her about it, and I do not think I ever told anyone else.
What levitated?
In my room, it was
Yeah.
actually a shoe.
Oh, wow.
We all took off our shoes. We were just sitting around my bedroom floor, and we were playing with the Ouija board. And most of us, there were 4 of us total that were there, and no, there were 5 of us. And so I believe that 3 of us were in a good direction to see the shoe. The person that it was behind obviously could not.
Yeah.
And then there was one that kind of had their back to him, or not back to him, but side. And I can't remember if they could maybe kind of see it, but I know that there were at least 3 of us that
Yeah.
saw it. And the 3 of us kind of freaked out, and he had absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
And the other friend, she kind of had an idea. She knew something moved over there, but she just didn't know what it was. And but 3 of us had a direct view to see the shoe levitate, and that probably levitated a few feet off the ground.
Wow. Who was kind of controlling things at the time the shoe levitated? Was it you?
I was part of it. I
Yeah.
don't remember. I think,
Hey, so you're playing with a Ouija board? Or something?
yeah.
Yeah, Ouija boards aren't good.
And the ones that were in the room, we were all directly around the Ouija board. There was
Yeah.
nobody else there that could have done anything to make it lift up. We were all sitting around this Ouija board, and it was a ways back behind the front.
Did the spyglass for the Ouija board ever move on its own or anything weird like that?
Well,
I don't know what
it's
you would
always
call it.
hard to
You know,
tell because, I mean,
Yeah,
I
you're
would
kinda
say
making it up.
yes, but if anybody else was moving it, I wouldn't know. So
Yeah,
I'm not
okay.
really sure. We had other weird instances with the Ouija board, but
Now, would you say that one of your spiritual giftings is in that realm? Would you say that would you say you're highly empathetic to things?
yes.
Yeah. So going one further than that, when you're highly empathetic, this is a natural kind of leap off point for a spiritual gifting. Do you ever have prophetic things that happen? You dream something and then it obviously something similar comes to fruition.
I feel like when I was younger, I did.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that has happened for a long time.
Interesting. I think I shared last week, but I am similar. I have lost my attunement was never very good. But I typically tend to be very highly empathetic, especially for a guy. Mm-hmm. And as I've gotten older, that ability, because I never really did anything with it to try to, whether good or bad, I never really did anything with it. But it seems like as time has gone on, I've gotten less and less so until I met her. Uh-huh. Now I do pull things out of her head a lot, and you do the same with me.
Yeah.
So I think that there's something there. And then my mother, obviously based on whoever listened to the last episode, my mother was extremely attuned to that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Would you say you are? Hey?
No, not well. I don't know. Sometimes I do. Sometimes just know things.
Yeah, you do.
Randomly, our neighbors. I was upstairs on the computer and I looked over at their house and I just thought, I bet she's pregnant. And then we went out to eat with them a few days later and she's like, oh, well, so I guess I'm pregnant. So just stuff like that happens often. It just pops into my head and I just...
Good job. You made her pregnant. Way to go.
I just
She seemed really excited about it, too. I hope you're happy with yourself.
she's adorable. So really, I did them a favor.
You did them a favor. Yeah, you do. And since I've been around,
Please
you too.
don't say that about us.
How much money you got, Ben? Don't make me stick my gift on you. That's awesome. Maria.
No.
Yeah, you guys are in the same camp we are. It's like I am too old to start over
Yes.
at this point. We always joke that you'd have to put us on suicide watch for 9 months before we'd get used to the idea right around the time the kid finally came out. We love a little stinker, but my goodness, the thought of starting over right now is not a joyous. It would not be a joyous event. So, but yeah, but no, I think so. Now, it seems like to me, do you, Maria, also feel like you have a really strong kind of gift of discernment? Like kind of along similar lines as Adrian. Adrian's gifting that I can see in her, and I saw this very early on, she has a very strong gift of discernment. Like she will look at a situation or look at someone and just know this about them. X, fill in the blank. And a lot of times, maybe she can't put her finger on it, but it's not good.
I do have that to a certain degree. I feel like I'm not attuned to it well.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I feel like sometimes, yes, I do feel like I have that gift. I'm just not great at listening to it and really honing in on it.
Do you have a parent that is gifted in these areas?
Well, I guess my mom is also kind of the same way.
Yeah.
So she tends to know things, and she'll call us. It's like she can just feel something is going on, or even somebody isn't well. She won't feel well, but it's not like she's not sick. It's just something she knows she just doesn't feel right.
That's the same thing my mom would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now Maria's great grandma,
Here we go.
spooky Grandma Fern. That's what we called her. She knew things. She knew things that I didn't know. That
You better hope spooky Grandma Fern ain't who's hanging out in your house, because you just made her offended. Good job.
no,
No, go ahead.
she was the sweetest
I'm kidding.
old
We
lady.
would call her spooky old grandma Fern. She would just giggle.
Yeah. She would freak you out with the giftings. That's why you called her spooky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead and finish your story.
Yeah, but she knew things that it's
There was
like,
no way she could know.
yeah, there was no way.
Yeah. That's the thing, man. It is. We kind of had an interesting conversation, I don't know, over the last week or so with someone, and it was just really the conversation revolved around, I think, not to speak for A, but I think I can, and if she feels differently, I'm sure she'll correct me, but we feel like that no matter who you are, whether you use God gives everybody spiritual gifts, right? And clearly it says that in the Bible. I believe, is that Corinthians?
Yeah.
I think so. And I think, was it 7 spiritual gifts? You've
I did that
putting
study.
you on the spot, because she's been through something
Yeah.
that's very interesting that the Vineyard Church does, which is called SOCM, which is the School of Kingdom Ministry. And that's actually what it does, is it actually focuses on the different spiritual giftings. Do you remember what they all are off the top of your head? Put you on the spot here, but
Don't. And I had done a study with a book, and I cannot recall what it is off the top of my head.
well, you got your SOCM book upstairs too.
It was a different class.
Okay.
It was a different book, but a different class. But yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's pretty clear that everybody is born with some kind of spiritual gifting, and it's just a matter of, I think it's like anything else. If you don't really use it, you don't attune it, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But you can also use it for bad, or you can use it for good. You know, I think you see people like Sylvia Brown, or I don't know. I think Miss Cleo was a total sham, it seems like. Sorry, Miss Cleo. Your spiritual gift just seemed to be ripping people off, or could have been fundraising for the Lord. Instead, you were ripping people off. But I think we can see that, and I think it's a matter of how people use it.
Yeah.
I think there's an instance too where Paul, and I don't remember, maybe the Galatians, book of Galatians, where he was talking to someone, and he was saying even one of their seers that was not so good he had spoken some truth and was accurate about something. I shouldn't even go there because I'm going to horribly mangle that. But
Well, Balaam,
go ahead with that.
the king paid him to curse all of the Israel as they were coming, and every time he would go, he would bless them. He did that like 3 times. So,
Yeah,
even God uses bad people to do good things.
yeah, he does. Balaam was the one too that
His donkey spoke to him.
Yeah, the gig on the road.
Yeah.
Donkey starts talking to him. That'd be fun.
And because he saw an angel. what was there
Yeah.
that Balaam couldn't see, which kind of goes along with our topic as well of there being that other realm that we just can't see unless the Lord opens our eyes to it.
Yeah, there was an interesting story that was shared. You had left the table last night, but it was an interesting story that was shared by someone about one of their. It was actually Ben. It was I think your grandmother.
Yeah,
I believe, right, where she just woke up dead in the middle of the night and knew that was it a family member?
Yeah, her brother-in-law.
Yeah, her brother-in-law had committed suicide.
Yeah,
I mean, just woke up out of the middle of sleep and screaming and knew that. You probably heard this before too, I assume.
Yeah.
So it's pretty strange, you know. It's curious to know if she was. I think was she actually dreaming that was happening,
I have no idea.
or just woke up and just kind of hit with it. That's a bad way to put it.
I never met her, so I didn't know her. So
yeah. So have you ever? I guess kind of going back, have you ever had anything prophetic, maybe in a dream that you can think of? What am I not thinking of? You're giving me
No, I don't think I've ever dreamed anything that's happened.
no.
Ben has.
Oh,
I'm going to throw him under this time.
well, I shared this with you guys last night.
No.
What was it? What was the story you were sharing?
I had a dream. This is that like a few days before 9/11 happened.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I had a dream that the vice president went into hiding, and there was buildings falling down, and I was trying to get to Maria to find her. And I'm like, this is the weirdest dream ever. Yeah.
That was one dream. So what happened was...
Yeah, I forgot about...
You don't know, Ben. Let's talk to Maria.
Because he was in the hospital on medication. He had an abdominal issue going on, was in the hospital. And as he was sleeping, he kept coming in and out of these dreams. And he kept saying these things that sounded crazy to me. And the first one, I'm just sitting there in a chair reading a magazine, and he wakes up and he says... I dreamt that Dick Cheney was in hiding. And my first thought was, who dreams about Dick Cheney? So I was a little baffled by that. It's like, well.
Ben, the politically motivated at every turn. Dreaming of Dick Cheney.
Like, that's interesting. Okay.
Don't dream you're going hunting with Dick Cheney. That don't go well sometimes.
And so I just kind of was like, well, that's nice, you know. And
I don't remember this part because I was out of it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm here to help, guys. Bridge the Truett family.
Yes,
gap.
exactly. And so then he later he woke up and he said, I dreamt that 2 planes crashed into buildings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And he actually said 2.
He did. He said 2. Wow. And I thought, some weird dreams, Ben. Okay. And so I didn't think too much more. I thought these were weird dreams, especially Dick Cheney seemed the weirdest. I couldn't get past that one. And so, but
husband's losing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I supposed to be some good painkillers, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. So we kind of went on, and he gets out of the hospital just, I think I believe that was a Tuesday, right? 9/11 that year. And I think he got out on Saturday. And then Saturday night, I think he got out of the hospital. And then on that Tuesday morning, I was still asleep when the first plane hit the first tower. And he called me and woke me up, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I was still sleeping." And he said, "You need to turn on the news." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because a plane just crashed into a tower, one of the World Trade Center towers." And
good job, Ben.
I was like, well, that's really strange. So I kind of got up and just was doing some morning stuff before turning on the news. And he called me again. He said, "Have you turned on the news yet?" And I said, "No." And he said, "A second plane just crashed into another tower." Yeah. And I just froze because of his dream. And
you instantly remember that.
Yes. And so I
Do you remember it at this point?
No, I don't think so.
You hadn't put it together?
No.
And so then I turned on the news, and then later they were talking about how Dick Cheney and President Bush had went into hiding, and I couldn't believe it. It was just all very bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's not the first time he's done that either. There have been times that he's a sleep talker, and he's talking in his sleep, and he has told me things that would happen the next day at work, not knowing he was predicting what would happen. But then the next day he's come home and told me, one day he used to work in property management, and he was telling me there was a little boy playing and got hurt at one of their properties. And I, usually I just kind of brush off his sleep talking, or at least I did then. This was fairly early in our marriage. And sure enough, the next day he came home and he said, a little boy fell at work and got hurt today. And I thought of him talking in his sleep the night before, and I thought, oh no, this must have happened the day before.
Yeah.
And so I said, no, you mean that happened yesterday then? And he said, no, it happened today. And I said, you told me about that last night when you were asleep. And then he has done that with other things too that aren't sticking out to me right at the moment, but he's talked in his sleep before, and then it's happened the next day.
Wow. So someone has the gift of prophecy, I would say.
I'm not honed in it.
That's just all. I think that's everybody at the table.
So
I think
now
that's
if
everybody
I
at the table.
hear him talking in his sleep, I take notice. After the 9/11 thing, I definitely take notice. And I thought the table thing was weird with work,
Yeah.
and he also, I would say, has, and I've told him many times, I feel like he has the gift of discernment, and I listen to his more than I listen to my own, and I feel like he is more in tune with his than I am. He has many times told me when we've met someone, like, no, there's something, I don't know what it is, there's something, and I'm like, no, I think they're great. Or,
your radar's off. You're sitting here talking with me.
and he's turned out to be right. Later, we've found out, and I try to listen. I listen to his more than I listen to mine when he voices it. So.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Sockham, discernment and prophecy would be two different giftings. Is that wrong or right?
It's been a while. Yeah, I think they're two different things.
Is that like Sock'em Rock'em Robots?
I know it's catchy, isn't it?
It always makes me think that.
Sock'em Rock'em. Prophecy bots.
There was Sock'em, and then I also did another, like a life group study that covered spiritual gifts, and they were two different things.
Yeah, but you don't remember any of these when you're talking in your dream.
Not really. Probably the weirdest one. I dream a lot like where I'm flying, like where I
you told me this before. I think we talked about this maybe last week.
And like I was asleep, and Maria's like, I've never had a dream where I'm flying. So in the middle of my dream, I reach over and I'm like, hey, I'm having the dream where I'm flying, trying to, and she's like, in my dream, she goes, what, you are? I was like, yeah. And in this dream, like I was in this like glass thing, and I was at a big banquet with lots of people. Everybody I knew was there. And I just heard this voice that said, arise and kill the witch. And so I literally flew up and I started fighting this witch. Yeah.
Well, I think you maybe, was there more to it that happened?
Well, that's a different dream.
So you've kind of had similar as far as fighting the witch.
Yeah.
Which witch does this refer to?
I have no idea.
You don't know which witch it is?
No. Now that you said that, I'm like thinking, huh.
Like I said, I'm just here to put everyone on the couch. It's my only job here.
I didn't know you had a PhD.
I didn't know either. A PhD. That's what I got. I was trying to pull up while we were talking here on the side where it talks about the different giftings, and I think I've got it here. So if I can, are you digging it up too?
I'm looking up the book we used.
Oh, the Sockham book. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I was going to ask a question, so I want to go back to this. When you said he was having some kind of stomach issue. That's what he was in the hospital for.
Yeah.
What kind of stomach issue was it?
Well, honestly, they never were sure. One doctor said that he believed he had some kind of virus that paralyzed his intestines.
Okay.
Originally, they put him in thinking it was a blocked bowel, but they did all kind of imaging, and they determined there was no blockage. So the doctor thought that it must have been some kind of virus that paralyzed his intestines.
And I know that seems like a completely odd question, but here's why I asked it. The first thing that I thought of was I wondered if you had a situation where some kind of toxins were being released in your body. And the reason I say that is because one of the things that we can clearly see with psychedelics and some of these other drugs, what's the drug that Rogan talks about taking?
DMT.
Yes, where they literally think that they can. It seems to me he firmly believes that helps him pass into the spiritual realm and monkey with stuff.
Yeah.
And I think from that you get all kinds of things. You get the spiritual stuff, you get the alien stuff, and you get all kinds of things that start to jump in there on top of that.
Yeah.
But I think that you can probably naturally arrive at that if you have enough toxins in your body. Or what kind of drugs was he on?
I don't recall. He was in severe abdominal pain, which was what landed us there to begin with. So I believe it was some painkillers, but I don't remember what.
But you were enough where you were out. I'm like, you're gone. You're out, you're unconscious. At this
Yeah,
point.
I felt good.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting.
I said
too.
8.
So I think it seems like to me, whatever that was, right, opened something up in you. But I think that can naturally occur during sleep as well. There's something that happens chemically in our brains that seems to happen where we open up and have things happen. I had an interesting thing happen with my son, where I have never done this before in my life, but I prayed for God to give him a vision in his sleep. And I think he actually did, from what I recall of the story. And he was kind of freaked out by it, so he kind of dismissed it. And then God kind of kept knocking on the door via other means. And then he finally got to the point where he's like, okay, I can't really deny this anymore. I think there's something going on here. And it was whether or not to join the military. He was just going to go into the reserves. And I think he's still planning on it. We'll see how that all shakes out, because he's kind of an adventure in progress, if you will. But it was kind of freaky for us as parents, because it was still at the time where, they were mandating vaccines for them if they would go in the military. And the timing of it was crazy, because literally right before he was going to go down to Kentucky to go through I forget the name, they call it MEPS. Yeah, where you basically go in for your entrance testing and stuff like that. The Congress literally came out and they reversed the mandate, like right before he was going to go down there. So I was like, okay, cool. I feel better. But that was kind of interesting, because it was the only time that I have ever prayed for that, and it happened. And I think what I take from that, and we can clearly again see multiple things in the Bible where it clearly people get talked to, and God uses dreams and visions to talk to people. So it's kind of a freaky thing.
Yeah.
So I think for me, and I don't know if it happens to everyone. Have you ever had anything strange happen? Any of you had anything strange happen in that space between awake and asleep that you can think of?
Well, with the last time that I had sleep paralysis, I was awake because my eyes were open. However, there was something in our room that time. It wasn't like the wind was being sucked out of me that time. There was a wolf in our room, and it was on our bed. We didn't have a dog at the time. And
you could see it.
I could feel it moving on the bed. It was that real. And so I woke up and I opened my eyes, and this wolf was on the bed with us, and it was kind of overbeen. But when it would move, I could feel the weight of its big, massive paws on the bed. I could tell that the bed was moving with it, and it was kind of had its nose down and was kind of breathing in and sniffing as, dogs do. And I could feel that too, like it moving its nose around on the bed. And I was terrified, of
Yeah.
course, but I could not move anything but my eyeballs. And I could just kind of look over at it. And I kept trying to figure out how I could alert Ben without also
The wolf.
alerting the wolf. Yes. And I was terrified it would attack either of us if it sensed movement or anything.
That would be a time not to talk in your sleep, Ben.
Yes.
No speaking. No hablo, Benito.
I had no idea this was going on. I was out.
Yeah, of course you were. Yeah, sure.
And so I was trying to alert him and move, but I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so it was after this time with sleep paralysis that I thought to look up sleep paralysis. And actually, I think that Ben did first, because that time I was just terrified. After the first time with the air being sucked out of me was scary. The second
And
time,
if I remember right, the building we lived in, a lady down the hall wasn't she practicing like witchcraft or something?
I'm not sure.
Or like a Wiccan or something.
Yeah, you knew the other
there
tenants
you go.
better than I did. Yeah, I don't know. And so, well, this happened at our house.
No, the very first time.
The first time
in
with
the apartment.
yes.
Yeah.
No, with the wolf, that was in our current house, and so after that time, I was just terrified. This is the third time it's happened now, and I was absolutely terrified, and the wolf really scared me. And so Ben looked it up and was looking for, what is this? Is this even a thing?
Yeah.
Has anybody else ever had
Oh,
this?
it's a
Because
thing.
I didn't know anybody else that had ever had it. And so he's looking it up, and he told me, he said, well, a long time ago, they used to think that it was demons that would do this when people had it. Now they say that it is kind of the opposite of sleepwalking, right? So when you're sleepwalking, the hormone that keeps you from acting out your dreams isn't strong enough to keep them from acting out their dreams. In sleep paralysis, your brain wakes up, but your body is still making too much of that hormone to move.
Oh, wow.
Scientific explanation makes complete sense. What I find interesting is that in looking into this, there are people who have similar experiences of things being in their room. So there are other people who have had the wolf in their room when they wake up. There are other people that see, what was it, a man in some kind of hat?
Yeah, the man in the hat.
What do you remember? What kind of hat?
It's like a fedora.
Some kind of specific hat, which was interesting to me. It's a very specific hat.
Maybe a wide brimmed hat. Maybe
Something
that.
like
Yeah,
and
could be wrong.
And so it's been a long time since we've read about it, but it's interesting to see that people have these similar occurrences that happen. And my mom also has sleep paralysis, and not too long ago, she had it happen, and there was not a wolf. I don't think she ever saw the dog, but she could feel that it was some kind of dog on her bed when she woke up. And so I understand the brain chemicals, and that makes sense to me. What I find most interesting is whatever is in your room that's somewhere in that in-between state.
Yeah.
That so many people would have similar things.
Yeah, there's obviously got to be something to it. Now, how long does this last for, ladies?
I'd say not more than a few minutes.
Yeah, I don't have any concept of time, but it wasn't forever. It felt like forever, but it wasn't.
Do you eventually just fall back asleep?
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh. That's really, really odd.
Yeah, I've never been able to just stay awake afterward.
Have you ever encountered somebody that's actually sleepwalking? Or have you sleptwalk yourself?
My sister does.
She still does?
Yeah, Carson. Well, I don't know if she still does, but yeah, it got so bad that she went to her friend's house once, and they found her. We were in an apartment complex, and they found her in front of her friend's door, a couple doors away.
How old was she?
She was late elementary, maybe early middle school. She was a kid.
Yeah. Have you guys ever sleptwalk or know anybody?
No.
Have you ever?
No.
So I want to say both of our kids did. So by the time Ethan came along, I was hipper to it. But I remember with Ashley, who's my oldest, I was working retail at the time. So a lot of times I'd get home and it was, 11 midnight, and I can't just go to bed, and I'm a night owl anyway. So I would kind of stay up for a while. So I'd be up till 1, 2 in the morning because I wouldn't have to work the next day until probably later, or I was off or whatever. And so I would stay up, and I remember she would just walk out and she would sit down. They both did this. they would walk out and then sit down and then just kind of like smack their lips together and just kind of like wide-eyed, just kind of like turn their head and just kind of look around the room. And you can completely tell like the lights are like the old saying, the lights are on, but ain't nobody home. That's what it's like. And I'm like, oh, hey, kiddo, what are you doing? You got school tomorrow. You need to get to bed, and won't answer you. And is still kind of doing the same thing, just kind of looking around, smacking their lips, and it's like, hello, are you, what's going on? And so like completely won't answer you, or will give you just muffled, like barely answer, like not coherent. And finally I'd go like, hey, you need to get your butt to bed now. Because, you feel like you're just being defiant, right? And when you first experience it, that they're just being defiant. And I remember like both of them, I think probably more Ashley than Ethan, but because by the time he came around, like I said, I was more hip to it because I could kind of pick out what was going on. But I remember she just like, her face like slowly just devolved into this tearful like cry that she was like, getting in trouble, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is so weird. So then I'd like go over and I'll take her and I just kind of escort her back to bed and put her back in bed, and like she sleeps and she wakes up in the morning. No recollection of the event at all. None. Zero. Weird. Zip zilch nada. No dreams to go with it. Nothing. Which makes sense if what you're saying, chemically speaking, they don't have that to do that.
Yeah.
Well, Isaac used to have night terrors.
Yeah. So is that too much of the hormone, you wonder?
I don't know.
Like,
he would just be like screaming, crying, and you couldn't wake him up.
And grew out of it eventually?
Yeah. It was like, I'm like literally shaking him and like slapping it, not slap, but like, and he would not wake up.
Really?
Yeah.
That's got to be freaky as parents.
Yeah, and we were told by the pediatrician apparently it's fairly normal. So if anybody else is going through that, it does pass. And she told us that it would, but I guess in maybe preschool age, I think it was children, that it's fairly a normal thing. And thankfully it did, because there's nothing you can do to help them. They're clearly.
How do you get them awake?
I don't know. Eventually
he never woke up.
Yeah, he would just kind of calm down and then sleep peacefully.
Lay him back down. And wow. Did you ever have that happen with the boys?
No. Jake would talk in his sleep sometimes, but he would have conversations with you. But they didn't make any sense. Like there was one time he called for me, and I went in his room and I said, "Yeah, bud." And he points at Jesse's crib and he's like, "Can you turn that off, please?" I was like, "Honey, that's your brother." He's like, "Yeah. Can you please just turn that off?" And I, sure. And then he just like actually just kind of just passed right back out.
Yeah, just like, it's weird.
Okay.
I would ruin what I would get for her, like a present or something. I'd tell her.
Yes. Oh, in your sleep?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so during Christmas time, you kind of have to like sleep in other rooms? Is that it is?
So I just stopped buying
stuff. Just send her out
stuff.
to the couch and stop buying stuff. I'm glad that I'm here as your friend now to advise you that certain things that you're making choices on may not be the best.
Hey, I know her.
Yeah. Just send her out to the couch, She'll levitate. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
It'll be great.
fine.
I'm gonna start calling you Dana.
Well, okay. Getting back to that, didn't you guys play that when you were little, and didn't it work?
We did play light as a feather, stiff as a board at mini parties, and it did work.
What
slumber parties.
What is this? I'm not
where you kind of all gather around somebody, they lay down, and you repeat light as a feather, stiff as a board. Everybody just puts 2 fingers kind of up against them, and then you levitate them.
Really? Mm-hmm. And it worked?
Oh, it worked.
It did not work for us.
Oh, it did for us, yeah.
Man.
They had a little brood.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You had like a little witch's brood working for a while.
I did. And unfortunately, I think I was...
You were the head seance, the head witch?
Stuff, yeah.
Do you think...
Sorry, threw you another bus on that one.
Yeah. There goes Maria again. Here, let me help you off the pavement. Take you back in front of the bus. Here, let's walk across the street on the side where the bus is coming again. So, interestingly enough, do you think when did you start to go away from this stuff, like the Ouija boards and all the witchy stuff?
Well, when I started dating Ben, he would not have anything to do with it.
Good job,
and
Ben.
I had a birthday party and we were playing with it, and he refused to do anything with it. In fact, he would come in and kind of poke a little fun at us why we were doing it, probably trying to keep us from being too serious about it. As well as I know him now, I know that's probably kind of his intent, was to not let it get too serious in there. And one of my friends told him to get his pure butt out of there so that we could we could have some fun. And not that he was, perfect by any means, but just teasing him. And so he really told me, he was like, no, really, you need to not be messing with this stuff. And to me, I always thought something made by Milton Bradley or Parker Brothers, whoever makes that. Yes, it's a game. And so he asked me just to please get rid of it. And
if you mix the letters of Milton Bradley up, it actually spells Aleister Crowley. No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, there's no C.
Or M or a couple other letters. No. That was completely Kyle on the fly right there.
Malister Browley.
Malister Browley. Yes.
And so I did. I got rid of it, and eventually got rid of the tarot cards, and who knows whatever happened to the, it just kind of all fell by the wayside. And I used to kind of, argue with them about it, that those things are harmless and just games, and what's the big deal? And, and my all-knowing wise teenage brain,
Right.
And so,
which is neither all-knowing nor wise.
Right. Exactly. Quite the opposite. Yeah.
Quite the opposite. Aren't we all?
So then I don't know. I guess after that, I never really had any pull back to it.
Did you ever monkey with any of this stuff with any of your girlfriends?
Yeah, we tried the light as a feather, stiff as a board thing.
Get behind me, Satan.
But
Dang.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead, babe.
The gloves came off. She's got a bloody nose.
I was always the one who was the church kid, the good girl, teacher's pet.
That's
all
my
of that.
two
So
shoes.
I never took it seriously, which is
She's why it didn't work.
exactly. I think
You were the Ben.
they didn't want to do that stuff with me. I had a friend who wanted to do the Ouija board, and I was like, it's just dumb. Like I fought it tooth and nail just because I seriously didn't believe in it, and I knew it was bad.
Yeah.
So that I stopped getting invited to those kind of things. But I think they didn't work because I refused to believe it.
Yeah. It seems interesting to me that you're in the room and everybody's like, you need to get out of here because you're bringing the party down because of your lack of belief or your hostility towards it. And this is never going to work with your negative energy in the room, which is hilarious. Which is, your positive energy really is what we're talking about.
We don't need your negativity.
Yeah, we don't need
We're trying to use our Ouija board.
Listen, we don't need you bringing negativity towards the negativity, okay, into the party here.
You mean my positivity towards the negative?
That's exactly right. How dare you, white, black sheep? You know what I mean?
Get your light out of our darkness.
Get your light out of our darkness. But it's funny to me because it seems like when you finally get everybody, because that's kind of what a seance is, right? Everybody's aligned.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing the same thing. You're all working together with this same belief system, and crazy stuff happens, right? And we can kind of see the same example. Now, obviously, Christ can do whatever Christ wanted to do, but when he goes in and he brings, the child back to life, he's bringing in his inner circle, right? Kind of his group, if you will, for that same kind of similar purpose on the other side, which makes a lot of sense because we see these constant parallels between good and evil. And that's time, story as old as time, because it literally is a story as old as time. And from the beginning, we see God on the one hand and Christ and, all these positive, entities and spirits on the one hand that bring light, and then all these negative spirits and entities that bring darkness. And then we sit in between. And if we make all of our focus over here, then that's what we're going to get. And if we make all of our focus on the good side, then that's what we're going to get too, right? So it's a matter of picking which side you want to tap into. And I think we see that so clearly today. Like you and I have talked about, the astral world stuff has come up a couple different times. We've never talked about it in detail, but a lot of these things where you can clearly see that there's an alignment with evil.
Yeah.
And evil shows up. you know, and it seems like you would definitely say, Maria, that when you would monkey with this stuff, it'd show up.
Yeah, it accepts the invitation.
Yeah,
without
totally.
question. Yeah.
It's just a matter of who's showing up to the party.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the curious thing is like, is it, you know, an evil spirit, whatever that would be? Is it an actual demon? Is it Satan himself? You know, I don't know. It's kind of and I don't know that anybody does know, unless you've got some kind of insight there, maybe one way or the other. But it does seem like, kind of taking it back to where we started with all this, it seems like unwittingly we do open up for things in our dream state or that state in between. For me, it's kind of interesting because where your experiences where you're asleep and then you go the other way, right? My experience with the other realm or whatever has always happened, and it's actually happened. It hasn't happened for a few years now, but it has happened more as an adult and more recent than when I was younger that I remember. My experiences have happened in that state on the way to being asleep. So I'm kind of in that weird zone where you're almost gone out, but you're not there yet. And I remember just getting an overwhelming sense of presence of evil. And I've had it a couple different places, and it doesn't seem to be, it seems to be dialed into wherever I am. Like when I'm sleeping. And I also want to say that in one of the instances, maybe I was asleep and I woke up and I was feeling this presence, but I was awake, you know, but I was still kind of groggy asleep. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I could move and everything, but I remember feeling this particular way, but it's strange because you feel this way, but you do wind up going back to sleep, which is so weird because you're like, you can feel the evil, right? Or you can feel this malevolence, but then you're like, well, I'm still tired. So I'm going back to sleep, which is completely counter to what we would do in normal life, right?
Yeah.
Like you go and get your 45, right? We go on the attack and we go fight or flight, right? It's basic fight or flight. But in this particular instance, there's something weird where it's just like, well, yeah, I can sense it, but I'm going to go back to sleep.
Well, Maria had just like a week or so ago, she said she got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and she saw an orb in the bathroom. She said it was really bright.
Yeah, after we talked about the most recent thing, and I said our daughter hearing things, I realized no, the orb was the most recent thing that's happened, which was after she was hearing stuff move in her room. I had gotten up and went in there, and it was just bright. And I kind of looked over, and it went away. And so I thought, well, I don't know, maybe it was a light coming in the window or something. Yeah. And the blinds are closed and I didn't see anything coming from that way. And there was no like ray of it coming across the room, just one area of brightness. And so a little bit later, then it was right in front of me. Bright, extremely bright.
How big are we talking?
And maybe or not a grapefruit, like a melon thing, I guess. I don't know. And just extremely bright. And really? I started praying that if there was anything in the home that was not of the Lord, that it would leave. And so the next thing I know, that is gone, but it sounded like a gust of wind hit the door. Again, no breeze, nothing moving through the house. It sounded like a gust of wind kind of pushed up against the bathroom door. And that was it. Nothing else. And I kind of the same thing. I went back to the bedroom and I was thinking, well, that's going to be hard to go back to sleep. Yeah. And so I got back in bed and I really wanted to tell Ben, but I wasn't going to wake him up with that. And so
he's too busy talking.
Yeah. But I did. I was able to thankfully just go right back to sleep. Like you said, it's one of those you wouldn't think.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And it freaked me out. Someone, she told me I needed to pee the next night and I stayed sleeping.
He's better than me. I'm glad he's waking me up, asking me to go with him.
It's probably best this way because the movable orb won't come to you, right?
That's right.
Well, Ben will like this because you know that orbs are associated with Bigfoot.
Yes.
Oh yeah. There you go. Your shiny blue and red orbs in the forest.
Like when her grandmother died, we were in the room with her, and we're just in shock. And we're just sitting there, because I mean, it happened in one day. Not expected whatsoever. So we're just sitting in there, just Marie and I by ourselves, and we're just like, man. She's like, what is that over there? And it was like a shiny orb on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They just looked like a ball of energy.
Yeah.
And I asked Ben, I said, what is causing that? And he said, I have no idea. So he started kind of moving around all of the room, trying to find what that light source could be. And there were some windows that were really high up. He's much taller than I am. He got up on a chair even so far as up to get up there and tried to see and move. See if there's any source for it. He found nothing.
Yep.
And it stayed on the wall the entire time that we were in there. And we did wait until they came and took her out. And it stayed on the wall the whole time that we were in there. And it was years later, I saw where somebody had lost a loved one, and they posted a picture. They actually took a picture or video of it.
Oh, wow.
And put it online, and it looked almost exactly the same.
Do you read, I shouldn't say do you read. Have you looked into...
As little as possible.
The book of Ezra's.
Esdras?
Or however.
Yeah. It's apocryphal.
Yes.
I have it up there, but I haven't read it yet.
It goes into what happens after we die.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yes. And it says, I mean, this is like either from Michael or one of the other 4 angels that was telling me. And what they do is they take you around for the next 7 days to show you things that are happening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I know this.
Like around Earth or
around people you know.
Okay.
Like around your... I know this is like totally against what most people believe.
And as I say every week, welcome to the Tinfoil Hat Club.
Yes. Sorry if I don't have a story. I guess this would be Ben's.
How could you bring up extra biblical text, Ben? What are you doing?
And so I've started thinking about this lately, and I'm like, okay. And so like Maria's real father died last year, and her brother was pretty close to him, had all these things start happening. Like afterwards. Remember this?
Yeah. I think he might still be.
Yeah, he still might be. And so I was like, well...
Pictures that had been hanging on their wall for years, never had a problem. The entire nail, everything would come out. And he would hang it back up. Same thing would happen. Or next time it would be another picture.
And he would mess around goofy too with you. I mean, it wasn't...
Yeah.
You know, he was not real serious, just like to have a good time too. But if you guys want to read a book, see what happens when you die, that's a good book. Even though some people say no, and it's kind of what we not used to, but it's a good look because we are on the physical side when we have no idea what's happening on the spiritual side.
I totally think so. I totally agree. I think you and I have talked a couple different times when you read the Bible, and I know that, I think every single one of us in this room is a mature Christian. And I think one of the things that gets you to the point of maturity as a Christian is by asking questions. And God can take it.
Yes.
He can take it. It's okay. He wants you to, because that's how you have a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
We didn't get married to each other in this room, and just for clarity, we're not a married group. I just want to say. I'm married to Adrian. You're married to Maria. Okay, yes. We clarified that because the world is a freaky, weird place now. So, disclaimer, there's nothing weird going on in the tinfoil.
Like you asked me today,
right.
Are you fluid?
That's right. No. Yeah, right.
And the first thing I thought was like Bruce Lee, like water.
Exactly.
You meant something else.
Well, I didn't. I was jokingly meaning that I didn't mean that, but which is, we live in a crazy world. But ultimately, my whole point in that is obviously to get to the point of marriage, because we don't really have arranged marriages anymore, right? To get to the point of marriage, you have to develop a relationship. And how you develop a relationship is by asking questions and getting to know someone and developing a deeper bond, right? And having shared experiences, shared beliefs, and all that.
Trying to understand their character.
Trying to understand their character and who they are, right? As a person. And why do we treat God differently than that? I just don't understand that. I think for
the
anyone,
scripture parallels that relationship to marriage.
yes,
Yeah.
the whole thing, the bride, the bridegroom, right? And I think what I see now as a mature Christian looking at my Bible, I see that there are some things that don't get explained that makes a lot of sense if it gets explained somewhere else. Because at some point it probably was explained, but as we've moved forward in time, we've had that put in a different place, or we've had it removed, or whatever the case is. And I'm not saying that our Bible hasn't been protected, because I think clearly it has. You can see that from the Dead Sea Scrolls, that we've gone 2,000 years plus from when those manuscripts were written, probably very much plus from when those manuscripts were written. And we can see how well intact they are to the translation of today. So God has protected the content, or the quality of his word. But I think that there are some other things out there that aren't necessarily in everyone's Bible that I think we can read and maybe get some more insight into some of these things.
Yeah.
Because there's other things referenced in the Bible too, right? Other works that are talked about. And what I would tell anyone is, if you want to read some of these other works, just be careful. I wouldn't encourage necessarily a young, brand new Christian to do this, because I think it could be dangerous. But I would say, whatever you're reading, take it to Scripture, known Scripture, the Bible, compare it, and if you can blow holes in it with Scripture, it's probably not good.
Yeah.
So that's a good litmus test for it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of these things that are probably out there that have been written down, recorded for us to know, so that it's not such a crazy mystery to us that we've maybe lost over time. But yeah, it's an interesting discussion. But because I think everyone on the earth has a spiritual gifting of some kind. Now mine, I don't believe it to be prophecy. Maybe some kind of discernment. To some degree. I'm nowhere near as intense as Adrienne is. She's got a very strong gift of discernment, and which is fantastic for me, because I'm like, hey, anytime that I want to do anything, I'm like, hey, what do you feel about this? And whatever you decide, it's on you. No, I don't really do that. But it's awesome to be able to go to your spouse and say, hey, I feel this way, or I don't feel this way, but what are you picking up from this?
Yeah.
Another story time with Ben.
I love it. Let's do it.
This involves both of us, believe it or not.
Story time with Ben and Maria, I think you mean.
Yes, and Maria.
Do we need to gas up the bus?
Yeah.
All aboard the old submarine.
Yes. No, not that guy. One day I was like praying really, really hard. I mean, I don't think I've ever prayed that hard or now.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the room was just filled with light. And I every time I think about it, I get goosebumps, even now. And Christ was standing before me.
Wow. Maria, are you familiar with this story? He said it was a you and him story.
I am familiar with it. I was not home. You
Yes.
about it later. Yeah.
And so I was just like, what am I? And I don't know if it was
Did he have any medication left over from the hospital?
He did not.
Okay,
Years
just
later.
clarify.
I don't know if this was a physical or spiritual. It was a weird thing.
Yeah.
And I remember this is where, I don't know if it was physical. He picked me up and held me. That's the best way I can describe it. It was, I don't know. I don't want to say it was a hug, it was just.
But you could physically see all this.
Yes. And I physically could feel it.
Was this in the house?
Not the one we're living in.
Okay.
No. Yeah. And so I was just like, whoa. And I couldn't really see his face. It was so bright, but I could see his hands, and there was marks in his hands. Mm. And so I was just like, I felt such a peace. Mm. And then it was over.
Wow.
And so it was like a couple days later, and we're driving, and I was like, I saw Jesus. And what do you say?
I don't remember.
I think you said, oh, I know.
Oh, wow.
She goes, I know.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't remember this?
I don't. I really
Oh, wow.
don't. I remember him telling me about it. I don't have any.
And I was just like, yeah,
And that was it?
that was it.
No way.
Yeah, that was
Good.
because I was like,
Then you went into detail.
I went into detail
gonna say.
and I told her and everything, but it was just like, I think I was like looking for direction at the time of what to do. Cause,
Do I want to marry this Ouija board chick?
no, we were already married. I think it was like when I was like in the middle of doing like a ministry. And so I just wanted, I was lost about that.
Yeah.
You know, what was the right thing to do. And, now everybody knows that story. Don't really tell. I'll tell any other story about this one, but now,
My
That you saw
levitation story, not
Christ?
so crazy.
yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations, you now have the weird talking stick, which is goofy to me. Like, why do we find that so crazy? I don't
know.
I don't
Maybe
know. I'm like, I'm willing. I believe you. I
mean,
why would
it's-
you make that up?
I mean, I did tell about it in church, and I got a lot of,
My biological father had a experience where when he was in the military, he had gotten into drugs, really hard drugs. And he had been raised Catholic, but wasn't really living in any kind of faith or
practicing.
anything. Yeah. And he, one night he was in bed and he heard somebody knocking at the door. And so he got up and he went and answered it. And he said that he saw Jesus's feet there at the door, and he knew that it was him. And he fell to the ground. Is my memory. It's been a long time since he's told me this story, but this was his conversion story.
Oh, wow.
And he said that he wept. He knew that he needed to change his life.
Yeah.
And
Was he high at the time?
I don't know. And I didn't think to ask when I was a kid. That's a good question, but I don't know. And my brother was raised by him. I was raised by our mom. And so he told me this after I was older. We'd reconnected when I got older. And that was how he committed his life to Christ was when he opened the door. He said Christ was standing there, and he cleaned up. I mean, got off hard drugs, did not have to go to rehab. He never had another relapse that I've ever been aware of, and completely life-changing for him.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, obviously made a huge impact on
Yeah.
him. So he must have seen something.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I just, I don't know. I find it interesting that somebody is very quick to dismiss that, ask some questions,
Yeah.
like what do you gain from that story?
I gain nothing, but I gain what I
Yeah. But
I mean, I shouldn't
experience,
say, I gained the
again.
experience, but to tell it, it's like,
you gain nothing from it.
yeah, I gain nothing, but I hope if people hear it, that I am not lying. I'm not, this is I hope they understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And if, because it's probably not just you that it's happened to.
Yeah.
It's probably other people have had it happen to them. I don't think anything we've talked about today is unique to anyone at this table. I mean, your individual story might be unique, but I think these type of things have happened to billions of people over time.
Yeah.
I because we are all, no matter where you are in life, if you have decided to follow Christ and turn your life over to Christ, you're going to have unique experiences. If you haven't turned your life over to Christ, he may show up at your door knocking. But what ultimately matters is this, and we'll end on this note. No matter where you are in your journey, if you have accepted the gift of Christ, sacrifice on the cross for you, or you have not, you are still a member of the family of God who loves you and who made you just the same as he made the four of us at this table.
Yeah.
And you are endowed with gifts and abilities because you are made in the image of God. And no matter what you're doing, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Obviously, our hope for you would be to, turn your life over to Christ, because whatever you're going through, it'll change your life in so many positive ways you won't even begin to imagine. It doesn't make life perfect, but it sure makes life a lot better and a lot more bearable. And I don't know how a lot of people nowadays go through life without having Christ and having faith. I don't know. It's just so difficult out there. So I think that's a good place to end. The only thing I'll add on here is I did find, we didn't necessarily read it, but I'll leave it out there for everybody who wants to go look at this and read. Be a great place to go dive into your Bibles is 1 Corinthians 12. That's where it talks about all the spiritual giftings. And you can go through there and see which spiritual gifting God has given you, because he's given you one of them, I guarantee you, at least, probably. So anything else you guys want to say before we wrap it up?
No.
Ladies, most beautiful guests we'll ever have. Thank you
That's
so
right.
much for joining us. You contributed greatly, and it was great to talk to you both about this. I think you're both uniquely gifted in your own ways, and you've had experiences that highlight the same. And I think you're uniquely gifted too, Ben.
Oh, shucks.
Oh, shucks. The only one of us to see Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
I'm really upset that you didn't see his face. My mom has a Jesus plate that we constantly poke fun of. And
Dinner plate
does
Jesus.
he look like dinner?
You know,
I don't think you can see Jesus' face.
as we were,
I think because
I know
it's
we're closing,
what
but
you
as you what you were just saying was, you know, I think if you ask, he will show himself, and that's what I was doing. I was like at a point where I'm just like, come on, you know.
Yeah.
Moses got to see the backside of God. He didn't see his face, but he saw his backside walking by.
Yeah.
And what I imagine is like not what it was, but I imagine this guy, long white hair and a long white robe, just kind of trotting along.
You can go Head of Days. You can go read about it.
That's right.
Go punch in Head of Days
I know.
in your Bible app,
That's
and
right.
you'll find out what God looks like.
Yes.
Or you can also go to the Book of Enoch
Yes.
and punch in Head of Days, and it'll give you the exact same description
Yes.
that's in the Book of Daniel
Yes.
to a T. So fantastic landing spot for us. So, ladies, thank you again very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic to have you. And Ben, it's always a pleasure.
Yes.
So, all right, y'all, thank you very much, and we will catch you next week on The Foil. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Atonement. Atonement.